Hey, Strong Girls. I'm Molly Herford, sports journalist, ultra runner, cyclist, and author, and founder of Strong Girl Publishing.
And I'm Dr. Sasha Gollish, executive director of Yellow Running Shoes, a researcher, engineer, elite runner, and your BFF who's breaking down the science of smashing barriers in women's sports.
Think of us as the intersection of science and culture for women and girls in sport. Each week, we'll dissect the latest headlines and cutting-edge research on female athletes.
Debunk myths about girls in sport. Talk about how hormones affect performance at every age, to the latest research in sports science around mental performance, nutrition, equipment, and so much more.
And we'll spotlight badass girls and women who are rewriting the rules of the game, sometimes literally.
Expect it to be nerdy.
And occasionally TMI.
But it will always be honest.
Whether you're a strong girl yourself or you're raising one, this show is for you. Welcome to Strong Girl Talk,
where sports science meets sisterhood.
Hello. Welcome back to Strong Girl Talk. I'm so excited that I get to say that because I have missed saying it lately. I'm Molly Herford, here with my amazing friend, Dr. Sasha Gollish, and we are doing a replay today to celebrate the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. But before we get into our chat about the Tour de France Femmes and our chat with Kate Veronneau, Sasha, what's been going on in the wide world of sports lately?
I mean, should we just get into it? Should we just go?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I guess on Friday, World Athletics announced their sex testing policy in advance of the World Athletics Championships this September in Tokyo. They basically downloaded it to the federation. So last night, actually during the Youth Collective, I received an email from Athletics Canada, and it's interesting, even their language. And this probably came from World Athletics, so I want to be very sensitive to Athletics Canada, that I know they're doing the best that they can as quickly as this is happening. We're recording on Wednesday. The event gets going today. They put this out yesterday. They must be so overwhelmed. But anyways, we will be doing targeted testing, were the exact words in the email. Yeah, so basically, if you want to compete at the World Athletics Championships this September in the female category, you need to prove that you are in fact a female by an SRY cheek swab. And we know, we talk about the work that I do on the daily about sport, and we know the sport system is cash strapped. And I thought it was really interesting that in the email from Athletics Canada, it said there is no financial burden to the athlete. And it just made me go, well, where is the financial burden? And from getting that email to now, I've had no time to look into it, but I will look into it and put it in the show notes. But I'm worried that World Athletics is downloading that cost to the federations. And I'm going to throw it to you, because before we got on this call, you are recording on the call, pre-recording while we were giggling hilariously, not about this. You made some really valid points, and I uplift each other. Share with us your initial thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, if you're confused about what we're talking about, we're going to include a link in the show notes to our first episode. It was our only emergency episode that we've done, where we talked about this policy coming into play, because this, while everyone is kind of calling it breaking news this week, to be clear, it's not breaking news. We have known that this was coming since early February. It's really, the only breaking part is the exact way that they're doing it, but we already knew it was going to be cheek swabs. So this is really not a surprise, but for some reason it's really boosted in the headlines, and suddenly people are a bit up in arms about it. And I'm not entirely sure why they weren't back in February when we were first talking about it. But anyway, we'll include a link if you want to go back and understand the entire sex testing, history, and also what exactly they're planning on doing.
But one thing I actually want to, that needs to be nuanced, and I have to figure out how to, it's actually sex screening, right? There's no such thing as a sex test, right?
Excellent point.
3 times 3 is 9, right? So there's this screening, and the screening is based on chromosomes. And I think, if I went back and reflected upon our conversation, that's probably one thing that I want to include now. And it's a screen to say, do you have XX or XY chromosomes? And that does not make you a woman, right? Anyways, it's a screen.
Yeah.
It's flow, then it becomes a flow chart, and people aren't flow charts, Molly.
We are not flow charts. We are not small men, and we are not flow charts.
Speaking of flow.
Speaking of flow, we'll get on to the next topic in half a second here. But the thing about this is like I absolutely applaud Athletics Canada for sending the message that the costs would not be passed on to their athletes. However, if federations are in charge of it, Athletics Canada is likely to be one of the very few nations that isn't passing the costs on to their athletes. This sport is already cash strapped. We talk about track stuff that's come out. Grand Slam also just had some like bummer information come out where they can't pay their athletes. We know that athletics does not have a whole lot of money. The nations do not have a whole lot of money. This is almost certainly going to be passed on to the athletes, or it's going to result in sending less athletes to world championships because you can only test a select few.
Well, okay, and then what I want to build on upon what you said is that, particularly in countries that are a little bit more conservative, where it's still patriarchy and, men are in charge, they will select fewer women because it's just easier to send the men. So, like this is actually regressive in terms of like it being a progressive international federation. And while generally speaking, perhaps athletics, track and field doesn't have a ton of money, I would argue that perhaps World Athletics does. And so again, I'll look into that and put it in the show notes, but I really hope that World Athletics is covering the cost, which they said they would do in their initial announcement on February 5th.
Yeah. Again, this is not breaking. Things that are breaking, however, include my current IUD. How do you like that segue? Okay, so if anyone's listened to me talk about this before, I have been a big fan of the hormonal IUD for a very long time. It is not right for everyone. I will just caveat that, but it has been fantastic for me for decades now. And anyway, I needed to get a new one. I'm at the 5 year mark on the one that I have. It's about 5 years long. So I went into my doctor. I am 38 years old. I was talking to my GP, an older gentleman, and he correctly asked if I could potentially be experiencing any symptoms of perimenopause. At which point I wanted to just turn off the video and exit the earth. But instead I said, no, no symptoms that I've noticed. And I just wanted to actually give him a huge shout out for, first of all, bringing that up because I know it's probably really uncomfortable for him. Family doctor, he should bring it up. But nonetheless, I recognize that it's like an awkward topic, especially if I'm not bringing it up. But then he actually was like, well, how are your running paces? How has your running performance been lately? And, for women in sport, we understand that perimenopause can deeply affect our athletic performance. Um, but that is not necessarily something that a lot of like family doctors, general practitioners would be aware of. So I wanted to give him some kudos for being on the ball with that. I was very happy. And no, my performance is not suffering. I'm doing quite well. Thank you very much.
Did you tell him about your win?
Oh, he already knew. It's the family doctor for my in-laws as well. So he really gets to keep up with everything that we're
Oh,
doing.
I hope that patient confidentiality happens too.
Yeah, I don't think 100 milers count as like confidentiality.
No,
Though.
no, I was, anyways, other way, but yeah. Okay, so, but actually, that's an interesting point. So when I had my IUD put in, I think March 2023, but there's some interesting evidence suggesting that you can leave them in for 7 years. So I'm a little surprised that he's not leaving it in for another 2 years. Um,
Oh,
anyways,
I should
curious.
to add more to that. It wasn't just a date thing. I've also, again, TMI, feel free to skip ahead if you don't want to hear about this. I was also starting to get my period again. And this is the kind of IUD where typically your period kind of like goes away, or maybe you have like a
Okay.
tiny bit of spotting, and suddenly I was getting it again.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was like, oh, clearly the hormones in this are pretty much end of term.
Not TMI. Remember, like we're trying to normalize periods.
True.
Good information for people to have. So if you have an IUD and you're coming up to 5 years and you're getting a period again, you got to bleed once a month, the hormones might be disintegrating, non-existent. I don't know,
Running
bad
out.
science word. Yeah. But if you're not, then that's a conversation that you can have. We talked about this, and I think it's really important. If you're using, I am in perimenopause, everybody knows that. It is all over my social media. I have a hormonal IUD as well. If you're thinking about getting an IUD to manage perimenopause symptoms, asterisk, it has to be a hormonal IUD for the progesterone because the copper IUD does not produce progesterone. And actually, so one of the like sciencey things in my brain that like just doesn't compute is like basically the I was gonna say carbon because we're talking about bikes next, which is kind of there's not you do not have a carbon IUD. It's a copper IUD, but it's basically like so inhospitable that like the embryo dies. I'm like, is that a good thing for us? Like, I don't. I, anyways, that's for
Yeah.
a whole.
You start
That's for
going down a
scientists.
rabbit hole of like, is that heavy metal poisoning? Is this bad?
Yes, that is exactly what my thought was. Okay.
Side note though, carbon fiber IUD, it's like the most arrow of the IUDs. And with that segue, let's talk about the Tour de France Femmes of Zwift. And I will say, if you want to hear a play-by-play of the racing action, I am now doing a podcast called the Queen Stage Women's Cycling Podcast with a couple other cycling journalists brought to you by Ruckus Composites, where the owner Sean Small just really wanted to put together a group of journalists to talk about women's cycling, in particular Tour de France Femmes. So it's been a really cool, really fun podcast to do this week.
It's my like daily highlight. So I am a listener. I am a fan. I did provide my 5-star review and a comment.
Thank you.
Share it on my social media. So if you're looking for it, you can find it on my social media. You can definitely find it on Molly's social media. It's way more covered on Molly's social media. But Molly, you've just done one. I mean, like we obviously know that I'm obsessed with you. Like that's quite clear from the podcast.
I
But
love you.
I just every day I learned something new. And one of my favorite parts was no dumb questions, right? And so it's this invitation for anybody to ask a question. And I like literally was like, oh, okay, well, I got one. Like immediately, I was like, well, how come Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, who we've talked about before on several podcasts, like, well, why would she get fined for like cheering her teammate? And it had to do with sprinting. And I was like, they weren't really sprinting there. Anyways, thank you for answering my dumb question.
Anytime, anytime, and no dumb questions. Um, okay,
Mm.
so maybe there's like a couple dumb
I
questions.
was like, I know in the last couple of days, I like really have asked some like really dumb questions. I'm like quite proud of myself because I've totally overwhelmed myself. Anyways, shall we talk about the history?
I think we
Shall we
should.
talk about this race?
Yeah. Do you want to open with talking about the Tour de France Alms? I am actually obsessed with the fact that that really has seemed to catch on
Yeah.
this year. Love it. Love that for
Um,
us.
I love that for us. So I'm actually wearing like a super old Tour de France t-shirt, and it's so interesting. So I bought this t-shirt in either 2005 or 2006. I was there when Lance Armstrong won 6 and then 7.
I was just gonna say
And
rough years to be
rough year for
a cycling
cycling.
fan.
No, no. In the moment, you didn't really know. It was like 3 years later. Anyways, at the time, watching the tour, like being in Paris, there was no idea that like this was a possibility for women, right? Like it wasn't talked to, like it wasn't even in the breadth of my imagination at the time, right? And it is so powerful to see in my lifetime what a change in the sport, the fandom, like just everything about it. And so I mean, I obviously wasn't going this year given I would have been so grouchy with my stupid knee. But like, I can't wait to go buy a Tour de France Femme avec Zwift shirt in Paris at some point to be like, wow, my life has come so full circle. Anyways, Tour de France, it started in 1903 and it was a newspaper selling scheme because 1903 like there was no so that was the social media of the day and the newspapers were yellow and so the main sponsor provided these jerseys and it totally boosted newspaper sales, right? Like and I'm kind of laughing, right? And maybe this will make you laugh too when you think about like club cycling jerseys. They're like, oh yeah, if you put a sponsorship logo on it, it really helps sell things. I'm like, we mean nothing. For the record, like nobody cares about us. It's not on TV, but like, nice try.
100%. Yeah. No, I love the early Tour de France stuff. If you go back and start looking at some of the history, it is fascinating, right? Like they're chugging champagne and smoking cigarettes to
Oh my
open
God,
up their
chain smoking.
lungs. Yeah.
Chain smoking.
They're cheating so hard that they make Lance look like an angel. Like they're hopping trains, they're like hitching rides. One guy's butler was like setting up lunch stops for him.
Oh my God.
Different world, different world. Absolutely
There,
fascinating stuff.
And but it's also like if can you imagine riding one of those bikes, speaking of the carbon fiber IUD, right? Like I can't and like the saddle sores, like I can't even imagine with those leather seats.
Bearing
So
in mind that's also pre-chamois days. Like that's even pre like wool with like the deer leather chamois situation that came out in the 80s. This is just straight up like, I don't know, wool pants. Period.
I got a like great social media post brewing in my head.
Oh no.
So the Tour de France Femmes really got underway in 2022, but let's go back. The Queen Stage actually does a great job in the first episode of covering the history of it, so thank you. Um, but we and I this is also in an episode, I'll go find it. We talked about Breakaway Femme, right? Like that's
So good.
right. That's really when there was sort of like the impetus behind it. And no one, like, okay, one thing I want to like, and maybe just nobody knows, like, but why did it stop? Like, I don't know that we actually know the answer as to like why it stopped. I was also thinking, I was like, yeah, okay, fine. It costs money. But like the men's was super expensive then and not making money. But can we do, I wonder if we can do like a Zoom event and like do a Breakaway Femme screening. Anyways, things I've been,
Ooh.
yeah, I'm like, bring women. Anyways, things I was thinking about on my dog walk this morning. But really, and like we talked about this in the lead up to the episode with Kate Veronneau. I don't even like, I think we published it back in April. It was Zwift that like really got behind this, right? 2021, still, COVID pandemic. There's no actual Tour de France Homme. And they did an Homme and Femme on Zwift. And it like drove this incredible traffic in like such a positive way. And I'm going to pass it to you because you know way more about the history and the involvement with Zwift than I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because as you said that, I actually had to like think in my brain. It was like, oh my gosh, it was only 2022 that they brought us Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. And I mean, even that, going back to 2014, they did like a one-day race, the course. And those races I do want to shout out because I think they showed that there was desire for a women's race of some type. And then finally, Zwift stepped up with the money to make it happen. So really 2022, first time we actually saw what felt like a modern, fully funded version of the Tour de France for women. And it's grown since then. This year we have 9 stages. It's the most stages we've had. I'm still going to make the argument forever that I would really prefer the men's race and the women's race to both just be 14 stages. Call it good. That feels like enough. And yeah, here we are.
But okay, but I'm also like, so you can, so in my research day, you can have 20 to 23 men's teams. And so I was like, just as you said that, I was like, I was thinking about flexibility, but maybe it's 10 to 14 stages depending on the year. And they could
Mm.
both be the same, like same number of days, right? But maybe if it's like, oh, we're in the all, like it's a super mountainy one. So like maybe we only want, 10 stages. But on a year where, it's going to favor sprinters, perhaps, like maybe then we do want 14 stages. I think there's so much imagination. I'm gonna Molly this. Imagine we designed it from a female focus first.
Yes. Please.
Right,
That'd be great.
right. Okay, so let's dive into this year. So one of the things I do want to highlight with Zwift that's super powerful about the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift is the ridership that has grown outside, right? It's on their Instagram. We will link to it. I think female ridership on Zwift grew 32% in the last year.
Yep. And the number of men and women that say they watch the women's race and then it actually like encourages them to get on their bikes, it's a shockingly high number. It's awesome.
Well, and then and you've all done a really good job at covering this in the Queen stage is the crowds, right? Like if you build it, they will come. Oh my goodness, the crowds this year are outstanding. Just outstanding.
Yeah, it's been incredible to see. Do I wish that the full stage was covered? Absolutely,
Oh,
because
yes.
unfortunately the viewer or they're only showing 2 hours of coverage on TV at this point. Although actually I believe on the weekend they are showing the final 2 stages in their entirety. I could be wrong. That has like we haven't gotten confirmation of it, but it looks like that in the schedule.
Okay.
So my fingers are crossed, but it's a little annoying to tune in and have to see like, oh, we're 2 hours in, so you can't really see the start line crowds or anything. But from what I've heard from the people on the ground, the start lines are also jam packed and super exciting. And I would say the energy is clearly there.
I mean, I watched the rollout. I would watch from I probably would watch from like warm up till cool down. Anyways, quite clearly fascinated with it. I think the other thing we should highlight about this year is there is a mass participation race. Let me just frame that in running terms because I'm a running nerd. But l'étape du Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. Like, could it be on a crueler stage? Like, it's the Queen stage. Everybody has to ride up the Col de Madeleine. The men,
Casual.
les hommes, also rode up Col de Madeleine. So I'm like kind of interested to see how that plays out. I mean, weather always affects times, but so one, to be at the top of that stage on Saturday is going to be, it might be the best party of the year. Let's just call it that. We're missing out on the best party of the year. Um, I think they said last week something like 6,000 people have signed up already. Yeah. And again, that's pretty incredible given like this is not an easy ride. Like it's not like, oh, let's go for a light spin today. It's like let's ride up a steep mountain.
Nor
Um,
is it casual or easy to get to that
oh,
location
that's
in order to
true.
start, right? Like
That's
this is
also a really good point.
thousands of dollars unless you happen to live right there.
Are we moving to France next summer? Okay. So back to the race. 9 stages. I'm going to say Queen Stage in the opening episode did a really good job at covering all nine. People should go check that out. We'll make sure it's in the show notes. 22 teams starting. So I looked this up. So men's is between 20 and 23. And I think they had, oh, it's good. I actually
I
didn't see
think
how
they
many
had
signed up
22.
this year. Yeah. So
Yep.
same. But the women's team only gets 7 riders. Men's teams get 8 riders.
And this year, that's been a huge issue because
Yes.
the women's
Oh,
race has been just absolutely marred by illness and injury. Part of this is because the Giro d'Italia women butted up very closely to the start of the Tour de France Femmes. Frankly, like all of these squads, just for the men's teams, they can almost send totally different squads to the Giro d'Italia and then the Tour de
yeah.
France, and it's not a big deal at all. The women's teams, they can maybe send a couple different riders, but for the most part, 4 or 5 of the riders on the team have been at the Giro because they're like the teams are just smaller because their budgets are smaller. So it's sort of a bummer that they're already down one rider compared to the men because a lot of the teams have already lost one of their 7 riders. So,
Yeah.
they've got 5 or 6 in there. So that's definitely been a bit of a bummer this year with the racing. But at the same time, you know what? The racing has been incredible. And we're recording this on Wednesday. It's going out Friday morning. So, like, I don't know how the mountain is going to play out on Thursday, but like, holy crap. Wednesday's stage, the GC, like all of the top GC, so general classification contenders, were right there at the finish. It was beautiful to watch.
Okay, so I was meeting with a student and I was like, I'm really sorry. I'm effectively not paying attention to you right now because the tour is ending. And she was like, oh, well, let's just talk later. And I was like,
You're
oh,
like,
you're the best.
please hold, go away for 5 minutes and come back.
Just give me. So you just said GC. So let's jump in. Let's talk about the jerseys. Again, way more robust. Hello, I'm a math nerd. Way better discussion, in-depth discussion about this on Queen Stage. But we do want to cover it briefly if you're new to cycling or if you are just a new fan and you're like, I wonder what I'm watching. So, Molly, I'm gonna pass it to you. Is that okay?
That's totally okay. So, in the race, we have different colored jerseys to uh, show different leaders in the different races within the race. So there's 9 stages, which means every day there is a new stage winner, so the person who wins that particular race. But then there's also the GC, the general classification, and that's sort of the sum of all of the total time spent on course, basically from the start to the finish. The person with the lowest cumulative time is wearing yellow. That means they're the race leader. There's also some like time bonuses and stuff that you can get from winning a stage or from getting sprint points, that kind of thing. We'll leave that discussion, but know that they can still gain some extra time in addition to just being the fastest. Okay, then there's white, which is the same thing as yellow, but they're under 23 years old. This is all, it's so funny how confusing this is for someone who's new to
Oh,
cycling.
I know.
It's wild. You do, I promise, if you're new to cycling and you're trying to follow it this year, I promise you that by next year you are going to be such an expert. It just really takes watching it and just letting yourself kind of immerse in it. And you do pick it up pretty quickly. Um, then there's a polka dot jersey, which sounds really, again, really silly. If you're like coming from any other sport, you're like, and then this guy gets to wear a polka dot jersey.
Well, I mean, there's history behind all of it, right? Like it was an original sponsorship that was polka dotted. I knew at one point what it was. Do you know what it is?
Can't think of it off the top of my
I'll
head. I've
yeah,
definitely done articles on this, but anyway, hilarious. It's a polka dot jersey. It means they're the queen of the mountain in this case, so they're the fastest climber on these specific climbing segments.
but they get points because that makes it confusing. They might be the fastest, but it's an overall points thing.
Exactly. Then there's the green jersey, which is for sprint points. And again, the sprint points don't just come at the finish line, there's sprints throughout the stage. So if you suddenly see everyone like kind of revving up the engines midway through and going for a line, it's because it's an intermediate sprint. Again, they get points for that. So it's not just like how many times you win one, you also get points for finishing, you know, fifth in a sprint. And then you're in the green jersey if you have the most points. Let's see. And then the other two that we have in our notes here are most aggressive rider for the day. It doesn't mean that they're like aggro and punching other people. It just means they're like attacking the most and like animating the race. It's a nice little nod to whoever spent the most of the day fighting because often that person doesn't win the stage, unfortunately. Sometimes it happens. It does. Rarely, though. So it's a nice way to kind of give a nod to someone who did a lot of work during the race and didn't end up winning. Um, and then we'll have like the overall team that's in the lead.
I have a
And
question about that because I actually, this is no dumb questions. Do you know how many people count towards that? I was thinking it was like 5 of 7.
I actually am not totally sure.
Yeah,
Might have to look that
again,
up.
that wasn't clear in my research, but I'll look it up.
Yeah, I wonder. I wouldn't be surprised if it was just 7 out of 7, and if you're down a person, then you're down a person, and it's tough luck.
That seems harsh.
Yeah, the UCI is pretty harsh like that.
Actually, it's the ASO, right? Because
ASO,
this
yeah.
is a privately owned event, which like
True, true.
also makes it confusing. You know what I love about the event, just like with the jersey winners, is how then like their helmets and their bikes and their shoes and their socks, right? So they get a jersey from and I Santini makes them. Sorry, I was like, oh my gosh, who makes these? And so like they give you this like jersey to wear, right? And then but they have all the like accoutrements. I love it. It's too
Yeah.
bad they don't have a nail salon on so that you could like redo your nails.
I bet you some of the teams do it though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and this is actually a newer thing to women's cycling though, because I would say like even when the Tour de France Femmes started 3 years ago, you wouldn't have seen a yellow bike or like the
No.
green bike with green hoods and like green everything, right? Like Lorena Wiebes, who's leading the green jersey, the points jersey right now, she actually has green wrapping on her like cycling computer. It's next level
Oh, it's
the
great.
amount
But
of work that these mechanics are doing at night.
boys, take note.
Hmm.
You're gonna have to step it up for the Volta, boys.
Yeah. Women don't want
Um,
flowers. We just want our cycling computer to match our jerseys.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm kind of with that. Okay. Again, Queen Stage did a way better in-depth job of covering that. Let's quickly jump into the types of stages. And I think this year's got a really good balance of them, right? Like one of the challenges, and I think it was you that addressed it so well in Queen Stage is like these events favor climbers, right? It's really and to that point of the 10 to 14 day stage race, like I'd love to see this actually just favor sprinters. Just give me, I'd like 10 flat stages. Let's go.
Yeah, I definitely do not disagree. And this year to run through the stages very quickly, it started with a couple of flat stages or like some very minor hills. Now, today, Wednesday, was sort of our first hilly stage, and it's stage 5, right? So we had 4 pretty much flat stages. Then we're into hills. Then we're finally into the mountains for the last 4 stages. Now, my issue with that is actually like having 4 sprint stages in a row gets a little tired, to be totally honest. It doesn't mix things up. And I
Mm.
actually would have loved to see an early, like not the first stage. I love one or two flat stages, but I actually would have liked to see a mountain stage earlier on. Um,
I actually loved that short, like punchy first stage.
I
That
did too.
I loved. It was different racing, right? Like, anyways, I loved it.
I think they've generally done a very good job. And obviously, the course is kind of dictated by where you're starting and where you're like the
Yeah.
town that you start in, the town that you finish in. You're trying to connect them. Obviously, you wouldn't go from one into like, you wouldn't do a 600-kilometer drive to get to a mountain stage to do on day two and then go back. So I do understand that part of it's just terrain. But nevertheless, I think or the Tour de France Homme really did have a bit more variety early on in the race. And I mean, I guess especially because this is only 9 stages for the women, if you have four of the same stage right off the bat, there's only 5 stages to go.
Math is math in you. It's getting you.
It's getting me.
Uh, but to your point about the UMS race, I think if they went further south, you could kind of go like in the mountains one day and then flat, right? Like if you're on the edge of like the Pyrenees or the Alps, right, you can then do kind of go in and out of the mountains and like anyways, I think overall, right, every year it gets better and better and better. I've really enjoyed watching this year so far. Um,
Yeah.
who's your like okay, actually, I love that you call it like the queen of the stage. Who do you think is the queen of the event so far? Not just a stage, but the event.
Ooh. I'm torn between the two women who've worn yellow thus far. Kim LaCourte is kind of a relative newcomer to cycling. To see
Yeah.
her in the yellow 2 days, again at the time of recording, is really exciting. But you know what? The fact that Marianne Vos, who has been, 2 decades top cyclist, she's been in the yellow for 3 days of this. I love, and I mean, it's no secret. I love Voss. She's a cyclocrosser at heart. I'm a cyclocrosser at heart. She's a 1987 kid. I'm a 1987 kid. I like her a lot. So I've
So,
been thrilled to see her in it. I know she's like, it was only a matter of time before she lost it for good, but exciting.
so I'm no Jersey winner. I'm gonna give it to Lotta Kopecky.
Ooh,
She, Lorena Wiebes, 2 stages in a row, right? She, lead out woman. She's been a domestique, right? She's the reigning world champion. Most world champions don't want to be like, sorry, domestique, because I'm like, oh, don't speak in language. You're the water bottle and snack getter.
yep.
So,
And she was originally one of the contenders for the
yeah.
GC, coming in, but then she's had a back injury she's been struggling with. And because of that, she's no longer in contention for the general classification. But yeah, she's still just staying in it. She is digging so deep to be there for Weebus when she's going. And I think you're totally right. You know what? I love that pick. That is a great pick because she could have abandoned, and I don't think anyone would have
Yes.
faulted her for it.
Right. And she's riding with such like passion and fervor, like and making the race exciting. And you got a little bit of a lead out train yesterday. I know it wasn't exactly what you wanted, but it was a mini, and today you got a mini one too, just a little one.
Kind of yeah, very tiny one today, but I'll take it. Look,
All right.
it's not that I love a lead out. Okay, like
Right.
between you and I, it's not that I love a lead out train, but it's that I think that's what viewers who watch the Tour de France Homme
Right. That's what they're
expect
looking
in a
for.
sprint stage. That is what they are waiting
Yeah.
for. That is what they're looking for. That is what they think of when they think of bike racing. So I think if
Right.
they're going to start seeing women cycling on par with men's cycling, they want to see those team tactics, those lead out trains, and they want to see that like how do I like the violence of the sprint,
Yeah. Yeah.
the
It's
pageantry of it
powerful.
all.
Yes, oh my gosh, it is the pageantry of it all, right? Yes, that is actually the best way to summarize it. So I am so thankful that Zwift exists. It's actually, it's funny. I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, oh, that's a very expensive membership I have that I haven't used in 6 months because I haven't been able to. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, but it supports women's cycling. So like that's actually the best investment I've ever made. So I just, Kate, the whole team at Zwift, everyone behind it. I am eternally grateful for not just what you did for the tour, and I mean the Tour de France Femme and Ulm seem to be like the biking race. I'm just so thankful for what they do for like everybody else in cycling so that they have a place.
Yes, I could not agree more. Kate deserves so much credit for the passion she's brought to it. And yeah, I mean, you can't credit Zwift enough. Like obviously everyone's in this to make money, but we also know that there's just no way that this has made them money. But it has gotten so many more eyeballs on Zwift. And clearly, obviously it's working to some extent because they wouldn't keep doing it if it wasn't, and I wouldn't blame them. So yeah, just so happy that it has been working for them. So let's get into this chat with Kate Veronneau, and of course, keep watching the Tour de France Femmes, avec, Zwift. And with that, let's hear from Kate. Every time I open up Instagram, you're in like a new place doing something new and wild and just like,
Yeah,
how are you doing it? How are you doing? Like, holy moly.
I know. It's awesome. Honestly, I feel like I was like just like when everything in your life kind of led up to where you're currently at feels really good because it feels like nothing comes easy and you kind of got there for a reason. You can kind of track, you have a nice storyline, that leads you to where you are. And it gives you that much more just belief in what you're doing and like kind of belief in the universe that if you keep doing it, things will open up. And it's been just thrilling to be a part of this whole like watch the femme and this movement in not just cycling, but women's sports. Like, I come from basketball to see everything going on last night, to see like the Nike ad go in the Super Bowl, and that's what everybody's talking about today. It's like my heart can't take it, you
I
know?
know. I know. Oh my gosh. And it's so funny because I had like this highlighted question of just like, do you think that, cycling is obviously like your and my big, strong passion. Do you think the femmes do you think Tour de France femmes, do you think it's starting to finally like sink its hooks in the same way other women's sports are finally,
Oh,
coming
absolutely.
around?
Absolutely. Especially because of just everything around last year's race. How good the actual race was, the narrative around it, the drama, the characters, that it wasn't just a moment. It truly is a movement now. And it's something that like, it's birthing all these other storylines and excitement. And I can't tell you how many people just want to talk about this season and all the transfers and everything that's going on. So you're getting that deeper engagement that is required for a movement to really take off, and now you're just building that fan base. The content has been so great around it that it's just endless. And there's just so much more room for it right now and so much more attention and coverage that we've kind of hit that flywheel, you know?
100%. Yeah. And I think you just kind of hit on something there with like the personalities are finally starting to become part of it because I think that is historically where cycling in general, and I'm going to say women's cycling in particular, I don't even want to say failed. I'm going to say the media has failed them
Absolutely.
because holy shit, the riders are out there doing the most.
Yep.
And I would say, even cycling media has tried
Yeah.
to some extent. Well, caveat that. But mainstream media for so long kind of just like dismissed women's cycling in particular,
Oh,
especially in North
absolutely.
America, right? Like you had a lot of Lance coverage in the early aughts and then
Yeah.
crickets. And we know that the flywheel doesn't get going if you
Yeah.
don't create these people that
Mhm.
are the people you want to watch, right?
Mhm. My favorite was this summer. How many like college, high school friends are like sending me the story of Kristen Faulkner winning the gold? Like, because it was mainstream. And that's the thing. Now we've hit that mainstream. So,
Totally. My
the
uncle
exposure
texted
is so
me
much
about it.
wider. Yeah. Like that was the best. When she won, I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I need. This is what I need.
I know. It was so funny. Yeah, my uncle texted me about it. He's like, "Have you heard of this
I'm
woman?" And I'm like,
like, yeah, I like, yep.
I
It's
can't
so
even
much fun
talk
though.
to you right now.
It's fun to be on the sidelines and watch something blow up, you know?
Totally, totally. I was like sending him links. I'm like, here's the 18 interviews I've done with her over the years where I
And
said
then what
she was
happens
going to
right
be
after
it.
that? What happens right after that? USA Cycling announces a massive, was it a grant? You know, was it
Yep.
Hellman's grant?
Hellman's
Um,
Grant. Yep.
like, I mean, and that's the cycle, you know, that's and now like we're investing, you know, and then, you know, it's
Yep.
like you get results and then you get coverage and then it just continues in this virtuous cycle.
Exactly. Exactly. We want more of the virtuous cycles. Yeah. And I mean, okay, so I wanted to kind of take you back too. And this is both about Zwift Academy, but also Tour de France Femmes.
Yes.
Talk to me about like year one of both of those to where they are now, because I
Oh,
feel like, when I think back to the first conversations you and I had about Tour de France Femmes is like finally happening, and we had a lot of excitement, but like I would say my stoke level, the limit does not exist at this point.
exactly. And that's what it is. It is this idea of like, there is like the sky is now the limit. With Zwift Academy, I remember that first year, we've talked about it. We had a goal of getting 500 women, you know, signed up because it was just a women's program that first year. It was super groundbreaking, also kind of controversial, definitely making some people uncomfortable, which we all know is a good thing. And when like 1,100 women signed up, it was like, oh my God, you know, we're onto something here.
Yeah.
And to see that program evolve into what it is now, which is an absolute legitimate pathway to the pros. You know, developing riders are now like mapping their season a bit around it so that they can put out their best because it is an authentic shot at a pro contract, which is hard. You know, really, really hard. One of the hardest things in sport is you know, to find that pro cycling contract. Um, what I love about it too is that now teams are not just like picking up, like, you know, the winner gets a pro contract, but teams now, other teams are paying attention to Zwift Academy finalists. And, you know, and now it's like something to have on your resume. It's like a, you know, if you succeeded in making the finals of Zwift Academy, you are clearly pro potential. So it's
Mhm.
opening up other opportunities, which was always the dream of the program, not just to have two winners,
Totally.
but to be a true talent identification program. So I love that that's evolved. I love like you know, I just love that I have this like stable of cyclists that I'm following, you know, from the beginning of it and seeing some of them still after it and still, you know, racing in the pro ranks. It's thrilling.
Mhm.
So, and you know, that program, we all know that that was like doing that as a women's program to start is what kicked off Zwift's bigger mission of like, what can we do with our platform and our community to create more opportunity in women's cycling? Like, how can we use our, you know, brand and our product and our community to grow the sport? And that seed that was planted, you know, in 2016
Yeah.
was what made us ready to do a complete, you know, what made us ready to do like a virtual Tour de France in 2020 to respond to the pandemic and do a virtual Tour de France with complete parity because of that commitment that we made to like, we're always going to do what we can on our platform. And then to have that then help us, you know, get on board as, you know, the title sponsor of the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, it just blew up now. And
Yeah.
now we're 3 years into that race and it's a different game. It's like we truly like, you know, that race has completely revolutionized the pro cycling scene, which is now going to you know, contribute to the, you know, additional support for, you know, development and more participation around the world, like all the great things that happen when women's sports finally get the coverage they deserve. So to
Absolutely.
see that happening now, I mean, I have to pinch myself all the time. It's beautiful, and it's also it's not that it's happening, that it's so much better than anybody could have ever imagined.
I
And
think
that's the best.
that's
That's it, right? Not, yeah, not just Swift Academy, Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. Like, I remember, totally honestly, I remember thinking after year one, like, okay, that was great. And I think you and I even had this
Yeah.
conversation totally honestly, where we were like, this is great, but there's a chance that like it's going to end up being this flash in a pan if people don't get on board, you
Hmm.
know? Like, even like you can have the greatest event in the entire universe and it still might just not catch that year. And to see, from pushing for making the damn thing happen year one, year two, now it feels like it's not just like, I hesitate to say anything that's like is like definite, but like it feels as though it's become as embedded as the Tour de France in current cycling culture. Like I don't feel like it seems like every other time that they've tried to do a women's race where they've, tried, and I put that in quotes,
Yeah.
just a titch. And it just like hasn't quite caught on. Maybe it goes a couple of years and then it kind of fades.
Yeah.
This feels like, oh no, this is just actually just part of the cycling landscape now.
Absolutely. And and not only part of the cycling landscape, but like showing potential to attract new sponsors, to attract new audiences that maybe haven't been paying attention as much, on the men's side. When we see Nike come on board as an official partner of FDJ Suez, that's an indicator. That's what we're looking at. And I think that there is just unlimited potential to this race, to these athletes. It's something that has really, it's fitting so nicely into this whole like greater narrative right now and the momentum, the unstoppable rise of women's sports.
100%. Yeah. So yeah, to that point, yeah, the non-endemic sponsors, like that I think is huge. And the one thing you kind of alluded to right there with the Nike contract, the one thing I did want to ask is where do you still see any gaps, especially like in the women's cycling space? To me, it seems like the big names, the Vollerings, the New Adamas, they're doing fantastic from a monetary perspective, but we know that there's
Yes.
still a long way to go once you get sort of down the after the first, say, like top 50 riders.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. What we are seeing like this year with the finally the rollout of a minimum salary for UCI riders. So that second tier, you already had World Tour, but the second tier UCI riders, that's going to make a huge difference because last year there were still women racing the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift that were not like really under a good minimum salary. And that's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. So the sport is becoming more and more professional. It's not going to happen overnight, but what we've seen in 3 years in terms of salaries and exposure and budgets of teams going up, it's going to be, there's going to be some growing pains. We know
I was
that. That's just,
literally just
when
going to
you have
say,
this much growth, it's a good thing. We're all going to help, like do what we can to, like there's a place for smaller investors to come in with smaller teams and development teams, so that we can start to kind of balance out the support. Because of course, the best ones are going to be making a lot more right now, but that is a good indicator for everyone else.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just going to take time.
exactly. Yeah. And I mean, I would say personally, I hope to see a renaissance of growth in North America because I think that's where I see the greatest struggle is like there isn't, I mean, literally Zwift Academy, like at this point is the pathway for a North
Mhm.
American road racer to like have a chance because there just aren't there's not a domestic circuit that's strong enough. There's not
Yep.
any domestic teams that can pay enough. And like they're
Yep.
trying. Like I talked to them. They're trying their
Yeah.
hardest and like can't hit those minimums because in North
It's
America the
really
money
hard
is
right
just
now.
not
Yep.
there. So yeah, it's I think yeah, right now we have like a pretty wide gap that needs to get bridged, but at the same
Mhm.
time, I don't want to like how do I put this? I don't want to like hold women's cycling back in
Yep.
order to let that like gap close, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, okay, and have to ask, the little bit of buzz is like everyone wants Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift to get longer.
Mhm.
Personally, I would love to see the Tour de France get shorter. I would love to see the two races be the same lane. What's your hot take there?
Yeah, it's definitely controversial. I once told a French newspaper that the men's race should be shorter when they asked about the women's race being longer, and it was not received very well.
You're
No, but
lucky they let you back in.
in this day and age, with modern audiences, the attention span of modern audiences, so much more competition for eyeballs in sport, for coverage in sport, you would never start a 3 week race today. The Tour de France men's race is 3 weeks because it was started over 100 years ago. And in this day and age, the women's side of the sport has the opportunity to better kind of better hit the market in terms of what is going to be the most viable, sustainable future race. And audiences don't want a 3 week race. There's full stages of the men's race that you just don't even need to watch. And that's just not something that is is gonna work well today. So I am definitely interested in the race growing. I want this to be, the biggest, best race in the world. But in terms of what the that eventual format is going to be, we're going to go year to year and see how it grows and how the pickup of the races, the coverage, the audiences, what the teams and riders want, which is very important. What is sustainable, from a budget perspective, especially with the smaller teams, they need to grow into this. So you don't want to go out so big and so fast that, you leave people behind. And I think we're really excited about the viewership of the race, the coverage of the race in the first couple of years. Something that we will be paying very close attention to as we evolve the race. As we work with ASO to evolve the race. This is ASO's race, that we are the title sponsor of, and we're happy to have some influence, but it's also, it's been so wildly successful, and I'm excited. 9 stages this year. That's a huge step up. If we can see different developments every year that show that the race is growing and evolving and, becoming, the best women's cycling spectacle or cycling spectacle of the year, then, we've hit a good formula.
100%. Yeah. And I think what you're also getting at there is Zwift has always been really smart about storytelling and whether, not to sound like an ad for Zwift here, but like whether that is like the world building that you do on the platform. Like you could just have everything on Zwift Island, right? Like, but no, it's continued to evolve. And again, Zwift Academy, this year you're doing the like slow release of episodes about the
Yes.
finalists, which is, again, really exciting and just such a cool way of like, I think really raising, to your point, actually raising not just the winners, but also raising the other finalists' profiles as well, right?
Yes.
Because like now you're actually making not just those two winners, but you're making all of the finalists like more household names in cycling, which is so helpful for them.
Yes. So we're a video game at the end of the day. So we have to iterate constantly. And that's something that we bring that iterative energy to all the different projects that we work on. And we say, okay, this is good. How can we do it better? And, evolve things in a way that is very intentional, that does take community feedback, media feedback into play, audience feedback. I'm really proud of how, with something like Zwift Academy, we really are considerate about how this project evolves every year to grip audiences, to give not just the winner, the best chance of kicking off their career, but those finalists that work so hard to get there, the opportunity to get the airtime and narrative that they deserve. So really proud of how this whole project has evolved and what it is today.
Mm-hmm. Now, for this year's Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, is Watch the Femmes still the tagline? Like, what should we look for this year for Tour de France
Oh,
Femmes
yes.
avec Zwift?
Yes. Watch the Femme is so exciting because it's grown to mean so much more than this call to action to watch the race. Now it truly stands for this movement of like, watch what happens when you invest in women. And so, yes, we'll absolutely be bringing back Watch the Femme and keeping that, as our big movement around our support of women's cycling. But we're inviting now community, industry, media, to be a part of this movement. So you'll see some exciting developments in how Watch the Femme comes to life in and around the race with different collaborators, ambassadors, partners, I can't wait to see it roll out this year and what kind of impact it's going to have. It's something that's so close to my heart, and the wider shared, the better.
Oh, I love it. Side note, do you keep those Femmes colored nails year round? Like, I cannot stop looking at them.
It ends up, it started out where I would just do them for the big events like Paris-Roubaix Femmes avec Zwift and Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, and then maybe like the route announcement for the next year Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. Now it's Tour Down Under, and there's so many more moments throughout the year. It's kind of it's a metaphor for how the sport is growing and how there's no longer this one big moment in the year. There's all these moments. So I keep the energy high. I mean, we're in my bedroom right now, and you see there's like a complete Watch the Femme theme where even
Oh
like
my
my
gosh.
whole room goes from yellow to orange
This
to pink.
is,
I have a Kasia signed jersey on the wall. I have, it's like I live it. And
next
like I
level.
said, how we kicked off this conversation is that like I've never felt so uniquely suited for something in my whole life. And the opportunity to like truly live this message beyond just like being a title sponsor, a brand sponsor, a brand partner, to actually it's something that I can be it, and I can exude it, and I
Yeah.
think that my enthusiasm is very welcome in this space. And I love it, and I think that if we can help make that contagious in the industry, in the media, that's what I want to do. Like last year at the women's tour, just seeing how many more women in the industry and media came out, and now this is becoming not just the race of the year, it's the place to be, and it's a place where we all connect and we strategize on how to grow the sport together. That's what the women's side of the sport is bringing to the game. And that's something that we haven't really seen on the men's side of the sport. It's much more just naturally kind of competitive. And I'm hanging out at a table with like SRAM and Shimano and Liv and Canyon, and we're all talking about how we do this together. And that's the energy that Zwift, with our Watch the Femme campaign, wants to bring to the future of women's cycling.
Oh my gosh. I could not love this more. Um, I'm gonna wrap it there. Thank you so much, Kate. That was perfect. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Um,
It's true though, right? Because it's like we're seeing across all the sports, it's like women bring a different kind of energy. Like seeing that Nike ad like, with all the different like women from different sports, and it's like when we put our voices together, amplifies,
my heart. It's so good.
right?
Yeah.
It's a good time to be in it.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Strong Girl Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, definitely head over to wherever you listen to podcasts and rate, review, and of course, subscribe so you never miss another episode. And head over to stronggirlpublishing.com